They told me to be practical, to think small, play safe, and stay quiet. So I did. Until the day I opened my acceptance letter to Northwestern and watched my parents hand every dollar of my college fund to my brother's next big idea. That was the day I walked out with a backpack, $200, and a promise to myself. If they wouldn't invest in me, I'd invest in me. 10 years later, I sat across from them in a boardroom not as their daughter, but as the CEO of the company they needed to survive. They didn't recognize me at first, but they would. Every time they saw the name Holloway Morgan Technologies. This isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about rebirth. About building something from absolutely nothing. One tutoring session, one late-night diner shift, one smart decision at a time. If you've ever been dismissed, overlooked, or told you weren't enough, this story is for you. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to prove them wrong. It's to prove yourself right. Let me tell you how I did it. And how you can too. Before we dive in, I just want to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you for being here, for clicking on this video, and for giving your time to hear a story that means more to me than words can express. Whether you're watching from your home, on your lunch break, or somewhere in between chapters of your own life, I see you. And I'm truly grateful you're here. This story isn't just mine. It's for anyone who's ever been told they weren't enough. It's for the dreamers, the fighters, the late bloomers, and the ones who had to build their own wings when no one offered a ladder. If you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or quietly determined to make something of yourself, I think you'll feel right at home here. So grab a cup of tea or coffee, settle in, and take this journey with me. Because what started with heartbreak and $200 turned into something no one, especially my family, ever saw coming. Let's begin. The moment I learned what real betrayal felt like, I was sitting at our oak kitchen island in our Chicago townhouse, surrounded by college acceptance letters. Yale, Columbia, Caltech. Prestigious names sprawled across crisp white envelopes like confetti from a dream. My fingers trembled as I opened the latest one from Northwestern. Congratulations, they said. I was in. I was going to Northwestern. Mom, Dad, I called out, voice cracking with disbelief. I got in. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. My mother, dressed neatly in a cashmere cardigan and jeans, entered first, her expression unreadable. My dad followed, loosening the collar of his polo shirt like he was about to deliver bad news, not celebrate. That's great news, Jenna, Mom said flatly. No hug. No smile. This tension. Dad sighed, gesturing for me to sit. We need to talk, he said. I lowered myself onto the stool again, heart pounding. Something was off. Very off. It's your brother, Dad began. Dylan's app startup is starting to gain serious traction. He's developed a platform that could change how seniors access healthcare. He paused and Mom picked up. He just needs one solid investment to get things moving. A real push. I nodded, cautious. Okay, but what about my college fund? The room went quiet. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. Mom's lips pressed together. We're going to use your fund to support Dylan's company, Dad finally said. It's for the good of the family. I blinked. You're using the money you saved for my future. For his app? It's not just any app, Jenna, Mom said sharply. This could be worth millions. You can take out loans like everyone else. Maybe start at a local college. My throat tightened. But you always said, college was the plan. Plans change, Dad replied, already turning toward the den. You're smart. You'll figure it out. I stared at the people who raised me, who told me education was everything, who spent years cheering me on, until now. Until Dylan needed something. He was always their star. The one who could do no wrong. And now, even with my dreams within reach, they were choosing him. Dylan was 4 years older than me. He had dropped out of college at 20 to chase one business idea after another. While I was studying late into the night, juggling AP courses, robotics competitions, and leading the student council, he was pitching half-baked startups to investors. His first investor being our parents, every single time. How much? I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. Dad narrowed his eyes. What? How much of my college fund did you give him? I repeated, louder now. Mom shifted in her seat, eyes falling to the floor. All of it, she said. The full $289,000. My heart stopped. The number echoed in my ears. Almost $300,000. Gone. That wasn't just a bank balance. That was every check from Grandma Evelyn. Every dollar I earned working summer jobs at the local bookstore. Every scholarship my guidance counselor helped me apply for. It was my future, packed neatly away and handed to Dylan without so much as a warning. I stood up so fast my chair toppled to the hardwood floor with a loud crack. "Did you even think to ask me?" I shouted. "It's my money." "Jenna Nicole Holloway," Dad snapped, his voice sharp and cold. "That's enough." He only used my full name when he wanted to silence me. "This is final. Dylan's company is part of this family's future. We expect you to support that." "Support what?" I said, choking on a bitter laugh. "Another one of his get-rich-quick schemes? Or is this really just about supporting him, again?" "He has vision," Mom said, her voice rising. "He takes bold steps. Sometimes that means risk." "With my future?" I cried. "What about my dreams? My work? Do those matter at all?" Dad's face turned to stone. "If you can't understand the importance of putting family first, then perhaps you're not as mature as we believed. Go to your room until you can speak calmly." 18 years old and I was being banished like a misbehaving child. Something broke inside me right then, not out of weakness but from clarity. I turned and walked upstairs without a word. But I didn't cry. Instead, I grabbed my largest backpack and began packing: clothes, laptop, emergency credit card, and the folder that held my birth certificate, passport, and social security card. From my drawer, I pulled out the $200 I'd saved to buy Northwestern gear. Now it would fund my escape. As I zipped up my backpack, memories tumbled through my mind like a film reel I couldn't shut off. Dylan's first failure. Some ridiculous app meant to translate dog barks into human words. Our parents gave him $50,000 to build it. He blew it all in under 6 months. Then came the cryptocurrency fiasco, the one he swore would make him a millionaire. It lasted 3 months before crashing, taking another chunk of family savings with it. Every time he failed, they offered more support, more optimism. "It's part of the journey," they said. Meanwhile, I was told to be realistic about my goals. "Backup schools are smart, Jenna. Dreaming too big can lead to disappointment." A sharp ding interrupted my thoughts. The doorbell. I peeked through the curtain. Dylan's Tesla had just pulled into the driveway. Of course he was here, probably to bask in their praise and collect his latest investment. Laughter floated up through the floor vents. Dylan's easy, confident chuckle. Mom's doting voice. Dad's deep, approving tone. A picture-perfect moment starring their golden child. I sat back at my desk and opened my laptop one last time. 2 emails. The first, to Northwestern. Subject: declining offer of admission. Dear Admissions Committee. With deep regret, I must decline your offer of admission. Due to unexpected financial changes, I am no longer able to attend Northwestern University this fall. Thank you for the opportunity. Sincerely, Jenna Holloway. The second email was far shorter. To Mom and Dad. You've made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Don't try to find me. I'll build my future without your money or your name. Jenna. I hit send, then powered down my phone and pulled the SIM card just to be sure. Downstairs, Dylan was mid-pitch about a revolutionary digital wellness platform for seniors. I'm sure it sounded impressive. He always did have a gift for spinning fantasies into funding. But for me, this was the final blow. I slipped my backpack over my shoulders and paused for one last look around. My walls were lined with science fair ribbons, student leadership plaques, and debate medals, relics of a childhood spent chasing their approval. I climbed out the window and down the trellis, something I hadn't done since sneaking out to watch meteor showers at 14. My feet touched the ground. I didn't look back. With $200 in my pocket, a head full of knowledge, and a heart full of fire, I walked away from the Holloway house for good. I didn't know it yet, but 10 years later I'd be sitting across from my parents in a sleek downtown conference room, watching them pitch their floundering business to potential investors, never realizing the quiet woman across the table held their future in her hands. But first I had to become her. And she started with nothing. Fine. If they were going to bet everything on Dylan, then I'd bet everything on myself. And I wouldn't need their $289,000 to do it. My first night of freedom tasted like stale coffee and uncertainty. I sat in a 24-hour diner just outside Chicago, not far from the last stop on the Greyhound I'd taken out of the city. My backpack was tucked securely under my feet. My phone battery hovered at 2%, slowly fading toward black. Before it died, I caught one last glimpse. 18 missed calls from mom, 6 from dad, and 1 text from Dylan. Jenna, come on. Don't be so dramatic. Just come home. I ordered another coffee and emptied my wallet onto the sticky laminate table. $178.42. The bus fare had taken a bigger bite than I'd planned. More coffee, sweetheart? The waitress asked. Her name tag said Darlene, surrounded by 5 fading gold stars. Her voice was warm, worn down by decades of midnight shifts. Yes, please. And I hesitated. Are you hiring? She looked me over. Clean blazer, pressed blouse, polished shoes. Remnants of a life I'd carefully built around college interviews and scholarship panels. But something in my face must have told her this wasn't a game. After a pause, she nodded. Kitchen help. Morning shift. 6 to 2. Minimum wage, tips split. Start tomorrow if you want it. I'll be here, I said, breath catching from sheer relief. She tore off a receipt and scribbled on the back. There's a motel 3 blocks down. Tell Joe that Darlene sent you. He'll give you the weekly rate. That night, in a motel room that smelled like old carpet and citrus disinfectant, I unzipped my bag and pulled out the Northwestern acceptance letter. The embossed logo stared up at me like a reminder of what I'd left behind. But instead of crying, I opened my laptop. For years, I'd tutored high school students in AP Physics, SAT Math, and essay writing. Their parents had paid top dollar for results, and I delivered. I used to see it as a side hustle. Now I saw the spark of something real. I opened a blank doc and started typing. Holloway Academic Coaching. Elite tutoring and college admissions prep by a Northwestern accepted scholar. With the last of my phone's hotspot data, I built a clean website using skills from AP Comp Sci. By dawn, I was standing at a 24-hour print shop, handing over $50 for 250 crisp business cards. The next 6 months would test me like never before. But I was ready to build something no one could ever take from me. From 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., I worked on building my tutoring business. My first client came by accident. A regular at the diner had overheard me helping Maria's daughter Lily with calculus during my lunch break. A few days later, she returned with her teenage son and asked if I could help him with AP Chemistry. Word spread faster than I ever expected. In the wealthy suburbs north of Chicago, Winnetka, Glencoe, Hinsdale, murmurs started circulating. There was a young tutor who had gotten into Northwestern who had deferred her enrollment, who could explain even the hardest subjects like they were common sense. She was patient, sharp, and her students saw results. What they didn't know was that Jenna Holloway didn't exist anymore. I became Kate Morgan and no one questioned it. These families didn't care about my backstory. They cared about test scores, acceptance letters, and bragging rights. By the 3rd month, I was making enough to leave the diner job, though I still stopped by on weekends to help Maria with her books and balance sheets. She'd become more than just my old boss, she was a mentor. A street-smart businesswoman who'd built something from scratch and saw a version of herself in me. You've got a head for numbers, she said one Sunday, watching me streamline her supplier system. But your real strength? People. That's where the money is, honey. He was right. My clients weren't just buying academic support. They were buying hope, confidence, a better shot at their kids' futures. And I knew exactly how that felt, because I'd been the kid on the other side of the table. Then one afternoon, while editing a student's college essay in a lakeside mansion in Wilmette, his mother sighed. If only you could clone yourself. Every parent I know would hire you. That night, the idea wouldn't leave my head. I couldn't clone myself, but maybe I could scale. I reached out to other students who, like me, had been accepted to top-tier universities but chose to defer or take a gap year. Many were brilliant and broke. Exactly the kind of people I needed. I offered a deal. Work under the Morgan Prep brand, use my proven materials and methods, keep 70% of your fee. I'd handle clients, branding, and business. 2 months later, we had 10 tutors. 6 months in, we opened locations in Chicago, Boston, and Greenwich. I lived in a studio apartment, wore thrifted clothes, and funneled every spare dollar into growth. And just like that, while Dylan likely torched the last of my college fund chasing another startup fantasy, I hit my first million. But tutoring was just the beginning. Opportunity came knocking when I met Emma Chin, daughter of tech investor James Chin. One day, during a break from teaching her AP Economics, I noticed an investment memo left open on his desk. "Dad's nervous," Emma said softly. "His company's in trouble." Chin-Tech's new energy storage prototype was falling apart. Too much had been sunk into development for them to walk away quietly. Energy storage. Just like Dylan's big game-changer idea that my parents had staked my future on. Except this time I saw a path forward. That night, I dove into research, poring over Chin-Tech's public filings, patents, and prototype specs. By sunrise, I knew two things for certain. 1. Their model was deeply flawed. And 2. I could fix it. It took nearly a month to secure a meeting with James Chin. I pulled every favor I had through tutoring clients, whispered recommendations and quiet mentions from private school power moms. Finally, I got in. His corner office overlooked downtown Chicago, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a desk the size of a dining table. When I sat across from him, he smiled politely. "Miss Morgan," he said, steepling his fingers. "My daughter says you're a genius with numbers. But what makes you think you understand energy storage?" I didn't argue. I just opened my laptop and started walking him through the redesign. For hours later, he wasn't smiling anymore. Instead, he was offering me a partnership. 30% equity, he said, if you can deliver what you're promising. I leaned back in the chair. 40%. And full control of the technical development. He studied me for a long moment. Then nodded. Done. 6 months later, Chin-Tech launched a re-engineered energy system that redefined battery storage across multiple industries. What Dylan had only fantasized about in pitches and slides, I brought to market. Under a different name in a different world. My net worth jumped to 9 figures overnight. But I wasn't stopping there. Leveraging the momentum of Chin-Tech's rebound, I began acquiring struggling startups in the clean tech and energy efficiency space, always through subsidiaries and shell corporations. Every transaction, every acquisition, every merger was routed through an intricate maze of LLCs and holding companies. Always one step ahead. Always protecting Morgan Enterprises. The world knew Morgan Enterprises as a rising private equity powerhouse with a shadowy, elusive CEO. No press. No interviews. No photos. Just results. Years passed. I moved between Boston, New York, and Silicon Valley, quietly expanding my empire. And all the while I kept tabs on my family from a distance. Dylan's ventures continued to crash and burn, each one bleeding more of my parents' savings. Their once proud family fortune dwindled. Then one morning, as sunlight poured into my San Francisco penthouse office, my assistant walked in with a file. "Montgomery Technologies is shopping for investors," she said. "Your father's meeting with buyers next week." I took the folder, eyes scanning the logo. "Set up a meeting," I said. "And make sure the invitation comes from Morgan Enterprises. Let's see if they remember the daughter they traded away." The Holloway Technologies building hadn't changed much in a decade. Same oversized marble entryway. Same gilded logo above the door. Same security guard thumbing through a dog-eared crossword puzzle without glancing up. But this time I wasn't walking through those revolving doors as Jenna Holloway, the invisible daughter. I was Kate Morgan, CEO investor, and the woman they unknowingly needed to survive. "Miss Morgan." A young assistant in a smart blazer scurried toward me. "The board is waiting in the executive conference room. May I take your coat?" I handed it over, smiling just faintly. My mother used to say power came wrapped in couture. Today I wore a custom Armani suit and Louboutin heels, together worth more than Dylan's last 3 startups combined. "Coffee?" the assistant asked. "Green tea," I said. "Loose leaf. 3 minutes steep. No sugar." I smiled again. My mother always mocked my tea habit, insisting real leaders drank black coffee. The elevator ride to the top floor was smooth and silent. 10 years of grinding, building, and executing had brought me to this moment. Through a web of shell companies and carefully orchestrated buyouts, I had acquired a controlling interest in Holloway Technologies' debt. Today they'd learn who held their future in the palm of her hand. The conference room doors opened. There they were. My father, David Holloway, at the head of the table, clinging to a role that no longer belonged to him. My mother, Margot, perfect as always, sitting upright with an anxious flicker in her eyes. And Dylan, slouched in a leather chair, phone in hand, probably tweeting something inspirational about entrepreneurship. "Miss Morgan," my father said, rising and extending his hand. "We've heard remarkable things about Morgan Enterprises. Thank you for coming." I returned the handshake firmly. There was a tremor in his grip. Good. Let's begin, I said, gesturing to the screen as I opened my laptop. They launched into a well-rehearsed presentation. Holloway Technologies was bleeding cash. A $50 million infusion was needed immediately. Market confidence was at an all-time low. Ann Dillon's latest energy venture had been a spectacular failure, consuming what little capital remained. We believe, David said, slipping effortlessly into his persuasive voice, that with the right partner Holloway Technologies can return to its former standing. I clicked to the first slide. Charts, losses, failed acquisitions. Your decline, I began, started nearly 10 years ago, right around the time you diverted the family's resources into a series of questionable investments. Dillon shifted. Margot's fingertips tapped the glossy table. David sat back, his eyes narrowing as realization flickered in his expression. And I smiled, for the first time, really smiled. They didn't know it yet, but their future rested with the daughter they once deemed disposable. We took some calculated risks, my father said stiffly, trying to reclaim authority. Calculated? I raised an eyebrow. Like investing $289,000 into an untested energy storage prototype built by someone with no technical background? Silence. The number lingered in the air like smoke. The precise figure of my stolen future. Dillon looked up from the table, his jaw tightening. How did you? He caught himself, but it was too late. I stood and walked to the conference room's massive glass window, the skyline of San Francisco gleaming beneath a crisp blue sky. Tell me, Mr. Holloway, I said, turning slowly. What would you say was your greatest mistake in business? He straightened in his chair, reaching for an answer. Expanding too aggressively into international markets, perhaps. No, I said simply. It was sitting in this very room 10 years ago, assuming your daughter would just vanish quietly. Margot's face went pale. Dillon dropped his phone. It hit the table with a hollow thud. My father's expression changed, recognition dawning like a slow sunrise. Jenna, he said. I smiled. Hello, Dad. Been a while. This can't be real, Dillon stammered. You're Kate Morgan? Actually, I said, returning to my seat, it's legally Catherine Montgomery Morgan now. A fresh start, with a reminder of where I came from. I watched the disbelief ripple across their faces. You'd know that, I added, if any of you had truly tried to find me. Margot finally spoke, her voice shaking. Sweetheart, No, I cut her off. You made a few calls, waited a few weeks, then wrote me off. Figured I'd crawl back when the money ran out. I turned to Dillon. So, how'd that energy project work out? The one you needed my entire future for? He flushed. There were complications. Interesting, I said, clicking on a new slide. Because Morgan Enterprises' subsidiary, Chintech Solutions, managed to solve those exact complications. I flipped to schematics of the system I'd developed. My father leaned forward, studying the screen. You, he asked, voice barely above a whisper. You own Chintech? Among others, I said coolly, pulling up a list. Elite Academic Consulting, Morgan Global Ventures, and as of last month 40% of Holloway Technologies' outstanding debt. Chaos erupted. Dillon stood so fast he knocked over his chair. Margot clutched the arms of hers. David Holloway just sat stunned. Why, he finally whispered. Why come back this way? I leaned forward, meeting his eyes. Because I needed you to see me, not as your daughter, but as the woman who now controls everything you once thought was yours. What do you want? Dillon snapped, eyes wild. Revenge. Actually laughed. Revenge. I shook my head. Brother dear, if I wanted revenge, I would have bought this company 6 months ago and fired all 3 of you without saying a word. I stood, straightened my blazer and smoothed the lapel. No. What I want is to fix what you broke. Margot looked up, her voice barely audible. What does that mean? It means, I said clearly, I'm offering to save Holloway Technologies. Full debt restructuring, a capital infusion, and a strategic technology partnership with Chintech Solutions. I let the offer hang in the air, knowing it would hit them harder than a threat ever could. But, I added, there are conditions. David Holloway's boardroom face snapped back into place. Calm, neutral, calculating. What conditions? First, I said, meeting Dylan's eyes, Dylan is out. No title, no funding, no shadow consulting gigs. This company doesn't have room for passion projects that bleed it dry. He opened his mouth, but David raised a hand and for once silenced him. Second, I continued, you both retire. The company needs leadership that sees forward, not backward. Margot swallowed hard. And the third, she asked. I smiled, though it didn't quite reach my eyes. Third, you all admit that sending me away was the best thing you ever did. Because everything I've built, all of it, I built without the Holloway name, without the family money, and without a single ounce of your help. The silence that followed felt like a reckoning. David stared at the screen showing my portfolio. Margot's eyes shimmered with tears. Pride, shame, regret? I didn't care to decipher. Dylan slumped in his chair, finally understanding that his little sister had done what he never could: succeed. Do we have a deal? I asked, already knowing the answer. David nodded, slower this time. We do. Miss Morgan. Good. I gathered my things and walked to the door. The paperwork will be ready by tomorrow. Then I paused just once. Oh, and Mom? That community college you suggested I try? They're now one of the top recipients of my foundation's education grant program. I turned and left. Outside, Maria waited in the black SUV. My first boss. Now my Sue. She handed me a warm cup of green tea, steeped to perfection. How'd it go? She asked. Exactly as planned, I said, smiling as I took a sip. Though I think we'll leave the diner part out of the company bio. She chuckled. Are you sure about this? Saving their legacy after everything. I glanced once more at the building behind me. I'm not saving them, I said. I'm reclaiming what should have been mine all along. You know what I learned back in that diner, Maria? I said, gazing out the tinted window as the city skyline unfolded around us. Sometimes the best kind of revenge isn't tearing something down. It's building something so remarkable. They have no choice but to see what they lost. Maria glanced over, her eyes warm. And did they? I smiled, remembering the flicker in David Holloway's eyes when he realized who I was. Margot's tears. Dylan's silence. They will, I said. Every time they see the new name, Holloway Morgan Technologies. You're keeping the Holloway name? She asked. Of course, I replied, opening my laptop to scan the markets. I promised I'd support the family business. I just didn't say how. We passed the towering buildings that once felt untouchable, symbols of everything I was denied. Back at my office, framed on the wall, were 4 items. My Northwestern acceptance letter, my first LLC certificate, a contract signed in 7 figures, and a simple name tag that read Kate Server. Sometimes the future you build is stronger than the one you were told to want. $1 at a time. One decision at a time. And sometimes $200 and a fire in your soul are worth more than any inheritance in the world. If you've made it this far, thank you for walking this path with me. I don't share this story to boast or to reopen old wounds. I share it because I know someone out there needs to hear it. Maybe you've been underestimated. Maybe someone close to you told you your dreams were too big, too impractical, or not worth the risk. Maybe you've felt small in rooms where you know you were meant to lead. I've been there. And I'm here to tell you, your value isn't defined by your family name, your bank account, or where you start. It's defined by what you choose to build when no one's watching. If my story resonated with you, drop a comment below. Let me know what you're building, what you've overcome, or just say, I believe in myself. I'll be reading every single one. And if you're still in the middle of your journey, I see you. You don't need to burn bridges to rise, but sometimes walking away is the strongest thing you'll ever do. So stand tall. Dream audaciously, fail boldly, and rebuild relentlessly. You've got more in you than you think. Subscribe if you believe in second chances, in starting over, in building something from nothing. Because I'm not done yet, and neither are you. Catherine.